Hi, Adobe Creative Educators. Welcome back to our Adobe Creative Educator Show. We're very excited to be here with you today and have some very incredible guests that are joining us. But if you're just joining us from Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, please post in the chat what you're teaching, where you're joining us from. We'd love to get to know a little bit more about you. And I see already some folks joining in. We have Tarek joining us from Egypt. Welcome. And we have Jessica joining us from Gwinnett County. Jessica, I know we just did an event earlier today, so it's really great to see you joining us. So again, this is a live show, so you do have the opportunity to ask questions live and join with other educators from our International Adobe Creative Educator Program. But for those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Clara. I manage our educator community programs here at Adobe. And as I mentioned, this is a very special edition of our Adobe Creative Educator Show. So as you know, every month we're focusing on a different theme here and have challenges throughout the year for you to create remixable templates with your students and with other educators. And this month, our theme is cultivating creative confidence with your students. And now we know, especially in the month of April during testing season, this is something that is prevalent in all classrooms around the country within the US and even around the world. So we're thrilled today to be joined by Sal Khan of Khan Academy. I'm the CEO of Khan Academy. And you're going to be hearing from him, his perspectives, and also have the opportunity to ask some questions live in the chat. But without further ado, I'm going to bring Sal on. So Sal, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Claire.
We're so excited to have you on the show. And for the vast majority of our audience, you likely need no introduction. But just to kick us off, could you please introduce a little bit more about yourself and share more about your current mission at Khan Academy and how it's evolved since you founded it 14 years ago?
Sure. So Sal Khan, founder and CEO of Khan Academy, which, as you introduced, or as many people know, we're a not-for-profit organization with a mission of providing a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. And as you mentioned, it started over actually 14 years ago. Well, 14 years ago is actually when we did set up as a not-for-profit, but it started back in 2004 as a tutoring project. Where I was an analyst at a hedge fund, and I started tutoring one family member remotely. I was in Boston, she was in New Orleans. That went well. It was helping her. I became what I call a tiger cousin. I started tutoring more cousins. Before I knew it, word spread in my family that free tutoring was going on, and I was tutoring 10 or 15 cousins. And I saw patterns that the reason why they were oftentimes struggling was because they just had gaps in their knowledge. So I started writing software for them. My original background was in software. So I did this as a hobby for them to get as much practice as they want. And then a friend suggested that I make videos to supplement the software. I thought it was a silly idea at first, but I gave it a shot. And those videos also took on a life of their own. And by 2008 is when I formally incorporated Khan Academy and set it up as a not-for-profit. You know, you fast forward to today, what started with a handful of cousins is now 130 million registered users. About 30 million folks come every month to the platform. We're in 50 languages around the world. But our mission, free world-class education for anyone, anywhere, is still the same mission. And our vision is, can we offer all of the core academic content from pre-K through the core of college for anyone in the world, everyone in the world, in all the world's major languages? Can we do it in a way that really meets students where they are? And so these are principles, I'm happy to talk more about it, of personalization, empowering students, meeting them where they are, mastery learning, which is always having the opportunity, the incentive to improve where you are. Instead of just getting a C and moving on, keep working on it so that you can get to a 90% or 100%. And then the third pillar of our vision is, how can we make that learning translate into real opportunity, getting into college, get a job, whatever it might be. So come a long way since those early days, but still a long way to go. We aspire to empower billions, hopefully, over time.
Thank you so much for sharing that background. And I know there's a lot of educators in our international community that are using Khan Academy. And I'm just popping over here to seeing some of the chat. We have Benjamin joining us from England, Rachel joining us from Texas, And Tim, hi Tim from New York says, I'm excited to learn more about Khan Academy today, have some amazing resources. So we're looking forward to diving more into that. And Rebecca, who's going to be joining us here in a moment live, says, I love the Tiger Cousin role. So it's great to hear those origins of Khan Academy that we know and love here in the international educator community. But we also have another guest joining us today. So I'm going to bring him on here in a moment. Hey, Ben, how's it going?
Hello there. Good to be here.
So Ben is here on our team and also our, director of education. But Ben leads an incredible team of evangelists and community members and community leaders here at Adobe. And Ben, you're quite the legend in your experience in education, including your tenure at Adobe. So can you share a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm not sure about legend, but thank you. Yeah, I have a wonderful team here at Adobe. We focus on helping K-12 educators worldwide inject creativity in the classroom in very meaningful ways. I am an educator myself. I've been teaching for over 30 years. I'm also an author. I've written 40 plus books that have taught coding to over 1 million people. And actually more relevant to our topic today, my most recent book uses game coding to introduce creative thinking and creative problem solving for middle and high school students. So that's what we do. We spend a lot of time thinking about creativity and how to help K-12 teachers. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Ben and Sal. I know we have a great conversation ahead of us, in particular focusing on mastery learning and creative confidence in the classroom. But Sal, in particular for Khan Academy, how do you see educators in the community cultivating a creative confidence in their students?
Well, I think creativity can only happen when there's space for it. And so I think it's important, and I think about this as a parent as well. When I was a kid, my family didn't have a lot of resources, and so like I was bored a lot. But that boredom, I was like, okay, there's some pencil, there's some paper. I guess I'm going to do something. And I used to draw a lot, and at the time, I remember I used to envy the kids who could go to these fancy summer camps and do this and do that, and those things can be very nice. But I now realize in my own childhood there was something nice about that boredom fostering creativity and making, you learn to make things as opposed to kind of being directed always on what you should do. So I think about this as a parent now because I now do have the resources and my kids probably are getting overscheduled, and I'm like, oh, am I squeezing out the time for some of their creativity? And I also, sometimes in classrooms, I think teachers can feel a burden on them to like, hey, I got to make sure that every second of this classroom is productive for my students. And that's a good instinct. Although sometimes I think it is nice to you need some guardrails for the students and some objectives for them, but then give them a little bit of space, give them a little bit of space to potentially fail, to have a larger variance in what they might produce. And I think those are the areas where you can let that creativity, which I think all human beings have, but it can atrophy if it's not given enough space and enough time. And obviously it can happen at every level. A lot of people think of creativity, they think of an artist splashing paint on a canvas or something like that. That's obviously one form of creativity, but creativity can even happen as when you're looking at an equation, and kind of the non-creative form of processing the equation is, all right, I just plug numbers into it and it gives me an answer. The creative form is like, what does this mean? How does this connect to other things? Can I draw connections with it? Can I manipulate it to have it express in new ways that tell me other things about the universe, that it can connect to other ideas? So I think it can happen in anything, but you need some time and space for it.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing here in the chat too, educators it's really resonating with their own experiences. And Sal, I love how you mentioned how creativity is not just the arts. And I think that's sometimes a misconception that we see in schools, but it's that whole making connections and what does the creative thinking process look like in math, look like in English language arts and sciences. And one of the things that we see in our community, and I know in Khan Academy as well, is that they're educators from all different subject areas. So as you said, just providing that space and that opportunity for students to have that freedom is so powerful. And Ben, anything to add to that in terms of, what you've been seeing at Adobe?
Yeah, so I echo everything Sal said. And, we need to reach students and educators. And when it comes to reaching students, honestly, not much is needed. It's get out of the way, give them room to play, give them the latitude to experiment and fail, give them license to iterate, permission to discover, find their own voice. That's actually the easy part. The trickier part we find are the teachers themselves. They are overwhelmed. They have often strict guidelines and constraints that they have to adhere to. And the last thing we ever want to do is give them more work. That's unrealistic. It's also, frankly, disrespectful. And so we spend a lot of time working with educators to help them understand how to meaningfully inject creativity in every subject, as you just noted, in a very relevant way. We have the tools. We think we have the best tools for them to be using. We have great content on our education exchange, including all the materials created in partnership with Khan Academy. And so we work with school districts and leads, with trainers, and our focus is to help them understand the how to be less prescriptive, which Sal just alluded to, how to rethink assignments, how to rethink the balance of lecturing versus doing, how to rethink students taking agency, finding their own path. And we do this with training, with mentoring, with professional development, participation in our Adobe Creative Educator community. And all of these, the goal of all these programs is really to empower educators with the confidence to let the students do what they'll naturally do best.
And I know a part of that, Ben, as you mentioned, are the tools. And I know we'll dive into some of the tools that are offered and possible for educators later. But absolutely, and kind of looking at across all subject areas, providing the freedom, providing the space for them to be creative is again so powerful. And I'm seeing some comments in the chat here. Tim says, I love giving students and myself some free time and space. Boredom can be a terrific breeding ground for creativity and imagination. So I think really brought that well together. And I see Kuben, nice to see you joining us from Johannesburg in South Africa. And Marilyn also says, appreciate the sensitivity in regards to teachers. So thank you there from Marilyn. But I know we've touched on this a little bit in your introduction, Sal, but when it comes to thinking about creative confidence and then an overlap between mastery, mindset, and creativity, how do those all, come into play together? And especially during April, during testing season, how can educators really approach these three pieces together of mastery, mindset, and creativity?
Yeah, and I'll add another dimension of growth mindset to that. It's very in vogue these days to talk about the growth mindset. There's obviously a lot of great research from folks like Carol Dweck, and Angela Duckworth, and other folks, and it's all on this principle that a growth mindset is better, and it's a mindset in which you don't stigmatize failure. You realize that if you didn't succeed, that's actually, and if you reflect on it, that's actually where you're going to grow the most. And if you have a stick-to-itiveness, a grit, of perseverance, and you keep working on it so that you can get to a point of fluency or mastery, that is how you're going to improve the most in almost any domain. Mastery learning is how that gets implemented in an academic setting, in my point of view. As I hinted at, in our traditional model, a student gets an 80% on a test, and they you mark that down in their grade book, and the student says, I guess I'm a C student. And one that probably creates a fixed mindset on one level, because you're not even telling the student, hey, why don't you give another shot at it, get better at it. This isn't a bad thing that you got some questions wrong. Those are opportunities to learn. But it also, then those gaps persist, which is, I think, particularly harmful in STEM subjects. I think it's harmful in all subjects. But if you only understood how to divide decimals 80% well, now all of a sudden the whole classroom is doing equations with decimals, or doing some more dividing decimal word problems. How are you going to really be able to master that if you couldn't understand the more fundamental idea? And so I think mastery, which is, in my definition, is always having the opportunity and incentive to improve your state, I think it's important for developing the tools so that you can express yourself creatively. I think if you look at the field of mathematics, the field of science, these are clearly creative fields. You're trying to come up with new ways of describing reality, new ways of understanding reality, new ways of engineering, new ways of inventing things. And I think the reason why sometimes there's a stereotype that it's not is because so much time and effort goes behind building the competencies so that you can be creative in the space. It's kind of like if we were trying to be artists, but for the first 12 years you're just learning to mix paint and you never get to be the artist, or you're learning to be a dancer, but for the first 12 years you're stretching, and you never get to really express yourself through dance. And so I'm a big fan of, if the mastery learning is going to build those competencies so you feel that confidence, so that when you do engage on, hey, why does the Krebs cycle work this way in biology, or what do these different forms of an equation really tell you? You need that fluency in order to be able to dig into the conversation, but then it unlocks an incredibly creative one. And I the more that we can bring some of what real mathematicians do, what real scientists do, into the classroom, all the better. But I will say, there's kind of, historically there's been a schism with educators, where there's been what you could call the progressive educators. It's like, yes, let's bring this all into the classroom tomorrow or right now, where kids are acting as scientists, acting as mathematicians, acting as historians. And then you have your traditionalists who say, well, no, the kids really need to have the fluency, really need to be able to solve certain types of problems. I generally think it's both. You really can't activate a lot of the creative. You can't, the scientists who are thinking like scientists have a lot of content knowledge and have a lot of fluencies. And if they don't, they're going to have trouble thinking like a scientist in a lot of cases. So can you use mastery learning, tools like Khan Academy, other tools, to get that foundation, and then hopefully free up time for more of the creative aspects, which exists in every field.
Absolutely. And that whole process of iteration and having a growth mindset and continuing to fail along the way is something that we've seen just even within design and creating different visual concepts and communicating. So I know it's something within our community we've seen quite a bit as well. And Ben, from the Adobe side, anything to add to that in terms of mastery learning and the growth mindset?
Yeah, I'll add that obviously creativity is a foundational skill, right? It's about agency, it's about finding your own voice, it's about iteration, and nurturing that creative thinking, nurturing creative problem solving, and creating competence in general. Those are critical to developing a growth mindset at your own pace, which is literally mastery. When I'm a huge fan of Sir Ken Robinson's definition that creativity is the process of having original ideas that have value. And in that definition, the word that's most important to me is original, the unique. The idea that we're encouraging a child to find their own path that isn't necessarily exactly the same as the kid sitting next to him or her in the classroom. And this is real and meaningful and impactful, and it has recognized implications, both short-term and long-term, right? There's lots of research that shows the impact, short-term impact on education outcomes in the classroom, but it has long-term implications for future success. Look, I don't want education to ever be solely driven by jobs and hiring trends, right? We don't want to be, in first grade worrying about what occupation you have 20 years down the line. We want well-rounded students. But at the same time, we can't ignore future opportunities, and industry doesn't want more of the same. You never hear a company saying, I love this employee, I want 1,000 more exactly the same as him or her, right? We want diversity. We want it not just for diversity, but also diverse thoughts, diverse problem solving, diverse thinking, diverse backgrounds, diverse voices. That's critical. And we have to nurture that. And if we fail to encourage that unique, honestly, we're robbing kids of their future. And for us, that's what creativity in the classroom is all about. And that creativity must be nurtured. And the truth is, tying back to where we started off, nurturing creativity is truly encouraging mastery.
Absolutely. And I know that, speaking of jobs of the future, we don't know what a lot of those positions will be, but what we do know is if you have a growth mindset, you can think creatively, you can make those connections, you can iterate along the way, approach problems from different angles. That's what's going to be successful and ultimately what employers are looking for. So and going quickly to the comments here, we do have some comments from the chat. So we have Timothy joining us from Canada, says, traditionally, math has never been recognized as being creative. Students can produce instructional videos with a creative element based on math. So some ideas to kind of bring in creativity into the process. And Tim says, agreed. I think one of the strengths of online tools is that they allow that self-paced, kind of personalized, individualized learning. So, and then goes on to say, great points. Diversity brings value in with different perspectives and ideas. So again, if you're watching live, this is a live show, so go ahead and post in the chat if you have comments, questions. It's a great opportunity to interact with our speakers live.
I will add, on some of those comments, I love the idea of making videos. Obviously, I spend a lot of time doing that. And there is, if especially math, actually in any subject, math, science, humanities, one of the most direct ways of applying creativity is, ask students to make artifacts, explainers, videos, or even to tutor each other. Because if you think about it, when you have to tutor someone else, it's an incredibly creative process. You have to model their mind and then think about creative pathways that might unlock certain concepts in their mind. We have actually a platform called schoolhouse.world, which is another not-for-profit, which does free tutoring, where people volunteer to tutor other people. So if you, that's for 13 years old and over, but another great outlet to flex creativity in a very direct way.
That's great. And that's schoolhouse.world. We can go ahead and put that in the chat. Great. Well, thank you so much for this great discussion. And we'll get back to some of these points. But within every live stream, we go through the creative process, speaking of iterating and going through that process of define, create, and reflect. So many Adobe creative educators know this process well. But with that, we're going to actually move on to our create portion, where you're going to have the opportunity to get hands-on with Creative Cloud Express and actually co-create alongside Sal Khan our April challenge. So as we move to the create portion, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my colleague, Rebecca Hare. Hey, Rebecca.
Hey.
And I'm thrilled to announce that Rebecca is joined our team full-time and is our education community program manager. And as we know, the architect behind the Adobe Creative Educator course. Rebecca, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly before we dive in?
Yeah, I'm really excited to work with Sal on this and get the graphic going. Been a teacher for almost 8 years and a designer before that. So I love working with creative educators and coming up with ways to make learning come alive for students. That's kind of our big focus right now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll get started right now. Sal, this is our Creative Educator Challenge for this month. We have a student challenge, which is I am more than a score. And there is a template that students can get started with and some videos to get them started so they could do this at their own pace. And of course, we always start off with a teacher challenge as well so that they can feel comfortable with it before they get started in the classroom. So when we click on that, you get a template, and it's really fun because you just click this, remix this design, and it opens up for you in Creative Cloud Express, and it's just a prompt to get you started. So you're not stuck with this design or colors or anything else. So we're going to first, your job right now, Sal, is to start thinking about the words you're going to change. I happen to have an image of you, so I'm going to go ahead and change that out. So when you start in Creative Cloud Express, it's always a great idea to click on the artboard, and then you can open up the layers panel over here. So I'm going to click on one of these images of our default image, and I'm going to click replace. And then I can upload images. So I have in my Great American Educators folder a picture of you. There we go. And it will magically take away your background, apply all the same filters that we've done to this, and then you are magically inside.
Well, that's
already ready
cool.
to go. Pretty fun,
I was
right?
just laughing. How many people have a Great American Educators folder on there?
I think every
Everyone
educator
should.
I have them actually categorized by centuries as well and geographic location. So you made the cut. There's only 6 in there. So that's...
I question your judgment, but let's go.
I stand behind my choices. So this is pink. as you can see, and maybe not your favorite color, maybe your favorite color. What's really fun with this is actually just a filter effect that we can do. So if you click down on this, it's a duotone effect, so it gives this like really fun filter to it. So we can, inside of Creative Cloud Express, click on this, and then I can use the color picker tool, which is like high-level Photoshop kind of thing, and change the color of your image to any color that we have. Or of course, I can go through other kinds of pieces. So I'm actually going to find it from the Khan logo, which is this kind of green here, and I can change the color. And then I can go through and change and click on through my layers, change all of these other graphics. But as you were chatting, I went ahead and was tinkering with that and have sort of started a design. I don't know how you feel about it. We can change it and make it
Looking
anything
good.
you want it to be. I did go in and I took some screenshots of some of the illustrations that are on the Khan website, which I really liked as kind of a background. And I was able to bring that same kind of green color in as well. And I found the same color in here. So how do you feel about the design so far? I'm happy to make any changes that you want.
I'm liking it. Maybe if we have more than one color.
Yeah, more than one color, absolutely. So we can actually, this is really fun because again, I click on the thing, I go through maybe one of your lighter colors, we can maybe change your center. You have another color, you can, so first of all, I'd ask you like what your favorite colors are. When we go over here, we can go through and choose on the more, there is a great color palette with tons and tons of colors, or we can pick something from any color that you want. Or if you know the hex code off the top of your head, I'd be super impressed.
I don't have a favorite hex codes, but what's a good I guess like a pastel, like a warm, like green and red are complementary, right? So
Yeah.
this is
Let's
like a
go. Let's see
yellow.
what happens if I do this red. Oh, that's
Green.
kind of fun.
Yeah,
You
that
like
can
that?
work.
We could also make it more of the orange.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Awesome. And then what's fun about this is we brought that in there. If we wanted to go just a little bit darker, I could click on that and actually go in and just make it a tiny bit darker or a little bit more red. So we see your picture a little bit better. And if I don't, I can go back and just find that orange again and switch you back out again. So that's the fun thing. And you can do the same thing to all of these shapes and features we come in. What's really great is we have shapes over here. And so I just searched up a blob. You can search up anything. So give me a word to search up that you think we will not have a shape for.
Is there like a shape word would be the word?
No, just
Spiral.
anything.
Spiral. I'll go with spiral.
Spiral. Oh, now I'm worried about I'm not going to spell spiral correctly because I'm live.
IRA. Trust me, while I've been making on Khan Academy videos, the spelling, I know how it is. Writing words.
Oh, always live spelling. Everything goes totally out the window. So
this is a no judgment zone.
I appreciate that. This is our growth mindset. I'm learning how to spell the word spiral. So tons of spirals in here. It's a fun thing. We can kind of bring those in. And what's great about this, I'm not sure if there's a specific spiral that you like the best.
Yeah, some of those are hypnotic.
I know they really are. It might be too much, but we can always throw them in. They'll come in with the default color, and then we can change that. We can change the size of them. We can rotate them. We can move them around. We can even change where they are. So I can go in. I do have this. I can go color picker this. This is actually the hex code of your blue, just in the Khan colors. So I could throw this spiral back here and actually just go and say drop it down to the back. So I could bring some other kinds of colors in as well. Every time I click on anything, that panel opens up for properties. But we should probably focus on words. So any words that you have in this. While I was listening to you speak, some things I brought in were, if I click on here, you can go, I heard you say reflective. And so I added that word in. Right now we have, you're more than a scorer, you're creative, you're collaborative, you're courageous, reflective, resilient. Any other words you want to change or add out for students?
And these are things to tell students, to remind them.
Yeah, that they're more than just a grade, because or whatever happens on that test, like that's really important, and we learn so much about that, but we're so much bigger than just that test.
Yeah, I mean, I meditate a lot, and I meditate on, I'm not the body, I am not the mind, I am pure awareness. But maybe that's a little bit too metaphysical.
Oh, I like it though.
I do find it very liberating when you're even this mind that is throwing out all these crazy thoughts. That's not quite me. I'm the observer of the mind.
How about you are more than a mind?
Yeah, or yeah, even, I mean, it's getting at a level, but you are
Pure awareness. So we have
you're
two
pure,
different.
you're a pure awareness. You are the awareness.
We could turn this into we have a spiral. We're almost like at a labyrinth, and we have a
Yeah,
meditation going.
yeah. You might have to
Um,
throw a big ohm symbol there if we go into this
exactly.
dimension. Um,
So I also heard you say being about the creative process, being like an inspired learner, inspired by your surroundings. So I added that in. Artist, thinker, scholar, supportive,
yeah,
determined, persistent.
yeah. I don't know if this is about it, but I always tell young people. I remind older people all the time. Like we get so I don't know. You can help me on the right word, but like we get so caught up with the mundane day to day that stresses us out. But we like lose sight of the fact that we're we're aware in this universe that is for the most part a mystery, and like just the
Ooh.
wonder of being able to explore it. So maybe you're an explorer of
Oh,
the
I love that.
cosmos.
Explorer.
The wonder, you're an explorer of the wonder of the cosmos, of reality itself. Like, every one of us is like an adventure, and we forget it while we're doing our taxes and trying to turn in tomorrow's assignment.
How's that? Explorer of the wonder of the cosmos. Is that right?
Yeah, why not?
I love it. I think I might have gotten a little bit big, but that's
Yeah.
okay. So we have all these. What's so fun about this is that we've done this, and thousands of educators have already done this, and actually a few thousand students have already done this. It just launched for them on Monday. And it's so beautiful to see, just with a couple of prompts, how everyone's response to this is so unique. And they've changed, they changed the words, how they think about themselves and how they think about their students. And so that's what we're really trying to do with these challenges, is to give just enough that people take it and make it completely uniquely and beautifully their own. So we could spend more minutes on this, and I know that we're probably at time, but it was so great to hear you speak, and I'll tinker with this a little bit more and then send this on over to you. But thanks so much for creating with us today and Creative Cloud Express.
Thank you. This is a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, Sal and Rebecca and Ben, for joining us today. And I'm just going to put a quick reminder here. So we'd love for you to create your own graphic. So we'll be sharing out Sal's later for inspiration. But if you go to the link below, adobe.ly/edu April STPG, and we put that in the chat as well, you can create your own image. And then we'd love for you to share that with the hashtag Adobe EDU Creative, so that we see all of no matter what time zone you're in, you can go ahead and post your image in there. But before we sign off today, a big thank you again to Sal, to Ben, to Rebecca, and quick closing comments. Sal, for those who want to stay in touch with Khan Academy, stay in touch with you, what are the best social channels or website to check out?
Yeah, we have both. I think it's Sal Khan Academy, and then we have Khan Academy on all the major social channels: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I've gotten more active. Actually, I have a TikTok. Look for me there too.
Nice.
Our neighbors convinced me to get on TikTok. But no, this was really fun, and I do think I agree with Ben. This is fundamental. Creativity underpins everything.
We'll be sure to check out those social channels, and that TikTok sounds like a lot of fun. And Ben, in terms of your social channels, I see your handle. Anything else you want to share with educators?
Yeah, I'm not young or cool enough as Sal to have TikTok, so but you can find me. You can find me at Ben Forter or online at forter.com, and I love hearing from everybody.
Thank you. And Rebecca?
Oh, I'm just excited to see learn how to dance from Sal on the TikTok channel. That's all. I can't get anything else out of it. I'm going to learn all the new dances.
Well, thank you all again for joining us, and be sure to use the hashtag Adobe EDU Creative in your takeaways from today. But have a wonderful rest of your week. We look forward to seeing all of your images and continuing to inspire creative confidence in all of your students. We'll see you next month for our next live stream. Bye, everyone.
Bye.